welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Angela and I am sitting here with the fabulous Piper J. Drake, whom I adore, and if you watch my channel, you know I kind of love her in every sense of the word. You're such a great writer and you're such a sweet human being too.
Thank you.
You're just like you're the best package. You're the perfect package.
Thank you.
You really do hold like a really special place in my heart though. You were the first person who talked to me at RWA, the very first one that I went to.
But it was so much fun running into you. Both me and Gail remember you.
But like that was my first interaction. Like you set the bar. So I mean, because again, I was a little lost puppy, like wandering around, wondering what's going on.
She was in the right place. She was next to the books. She was right at the bookstore, and that's right where we were.
Yeah, that's where you're supposed to be, the bookstore.
Mm-hmm.
But you were so sweet. You came right up to me and you were so outgoing. You know, I even told my mom about you and I was like, I met this amazing writer who I told you to read before and I know you haven't, but you should be. And I'm pretty sure because you were nice to me, she went and bought all your books.
Oh
So
my
now I
gosh.
have my copies and she has hers. So you made my RWA. You started it off on the right note.
Oh, I'm so glad you had a good time though. And Gail was super delighted to meet you too.
I was looking at her, I'm like, I know you, I've seen you. She is stunning.
And she usually has a bold lip. Like the makeup,
I don't know,
was
yeah.
thing. And she usually has a very bold lip. She has a lovely figure, and it's always very retro.
Yeah, she looked like she was very 1950s, I think, that day.
Yeah, she's very retro,
Mhm.
and she has usually a very on-brand purse, which has recently been a teacup or teapot.
To me, you're both big names standing next to each other, so I'm trying very hard to be, you know.
And then we told you about our podcast.
But I was already listening to it.
We were like, wow, you're a listener of our podcast. That was fantastic. We were just like, whoa, you're the first person we pitched our podcast to, and you're already a listener.
Yes.
We were not expecting that.
You will forever be one of my favorite writers.
Oh.
Forever. Because you're not just talented, you're just a sweet person too.
Yes.
Everyone should be reading Piper's books. Thank you. So I think my first question to you has to be, what got you interested in the romance genre?
All right, so that's kind of fun because there are a lot of people who have read romance for their entire lives. I have a confession. I didn't start reading romance until well into my adulthood. I was a science fiction fantasy reader.
Wow.
Read mostly growing up. Anne McCaffrey was a longtime favorite. Mercedes Lackey, obviously, also longtime favorite. I was like, oh gosh, 3rd grade, I even read Tarl Cabot's Slave Girl of Gore. That's a really odd read for a 3rd grader, honestly. And Michael Crichton's Sphere around that time. Terry Brooks, Elfstones of Shannara. So I was very much a heavy-duty fantasy reader with some space opera mixed in there. And yeah, Robert Heinlein was in there. David Weber was in there.
But you don't write fantasy.
I know.
You write contemporary.
Yes.
Action contemporaries.
Exactly.
So it's totally left field to me. This is all new.
What ended up happening was I was at, because I watch a lot of anime too, I was at an anime con in Seattle around 2008-ish, a couple years before I got published. I may have conned too hard the night before. I stayed up late in the anime viewing rooms because that was when the anime cons were still able to screen stuff that hadn't been released in the US yet, as long as it's unlicensed.
Cool.
And so they were fan subbed, and I may be enough of a geek that I had fan sub friends. So I was like one of those kids that would have like pirated copies of Evangelion on VHS tape, and we'd be running it through and fan subbing them. Like that was back in the day, right? So, you know, 2008, the viewing panels are less and less by then. But we were at SakuraCon and I may have stayed up a little too late in the viewing rooms watching stuff. And I'm telling you, the fried pickles may not have agreed with my stomach.
Oh.
Usually fried pickles are fine. They just, not that night. So the next morning I might have stayed in the hotel room while everybody else went to programming.
Yeah.
To like, you know, let stuff calm down and chill out and have a late morning. And she had left her current book on the bed. Which, friends read other friends' books as long as you're careful with them, right?
Yes.
And it happens to be C.L. Wilson's Lord of the Fading Lands.
That was your first romance?
Oh my god!
Forever
That
converted. Forever converted to Romancelandia.
I had finished the book by the time she'd come back. That is not a thin fantasy novel, my friends. I had devoured that book by the time my friend got back from morning paneling and was hungry for lunch, and I was like, we have to go to Barnes Noble. I need this book. I need the next book. You didn't bring it, did you? And she's like, no, I brought 9 other not romance novels, but I didn't bring the next one in the series. Why would I? Because that's my friend.
Yeah.
She had 10 other books in her suitcase, and none of them was the second book in the series. So we went to Barnes and Noble.
You're like, how can you do this to me? Didn't you know I was going to grab this book?
She had the next in the series that she was reading of the very series she was reading. Which,
Yeah.
hey, those are her priorities.
Yes.
But she did not foresee that I was going to need this book.
She did not foresee that she was changing your life in this instance.
Yes. So, all right, fine. She takes me to Barnes and Noble, and I head straight to the science fiction fantasy section. She's like, oh, sometimes she's there, sometimes she's not. And I'm like, swivel. You're standing in the romance section. There she is. All right, give me the next book. Like, I didn't even take a moment to judge, right? Like, this wasn't about the fact that I was like, oh, I don't read romance. That did not occur to me. What occurred to me was the next book that was in the series that I needed to read right now was there. On the bottom shelf, I can still picture it. And I was like, let me take the third book just in case. Because, you know, we got 2 more days of con left.
And you just devoured that one too, I'm gonna guess.
In one morning, right? Like, so I bought all of the books, took them home. I mean, I was reading them through the con and everything. Like, I carried them around Sakura Con with me. And I was reading whenever we were in line, because that's what you do. What else are you gonna do in line? And I was forever into romance after that.
Oh.
And so she was my best friend, Hel. And she has been to romance conventions with me occasionally, but she has decided not to come very often because she likes to not have met the authors of the books that she's reading.
Interesting.
Yes, because what happens is if she meets the author, she starts to picture them in the book.
Oh, so she thinks it's the people kind of...
She doesn't mean
on the
to.
page.
Like, she knows it's not them.
Yeah.
She really does know that it's not them, but she can't help it if she's met you.
I thought you were going to say she was going to take the interactions with them and say, oh, this person was nice, this person wasn't nice, and then go from there.
No.
That's
You end up casting your own book by accident.
I don't think I've ever actually heard of anyone saying that.
She doesn't mean to do it.
That's really interesting.
She's constantly, like, her father reads my books, and she doesn't read my books anymore. Like, she's got to be in the right mindset to read my books because I'm casting my own books by accident. And she also happens to know my partner, Matthew J. Drake. So guess who's the hero?
No.
Every time.
Well, I mean, if he's going to be cast as a hero, you have some pretty good ones in there.
Thank you. My hero is very diverse.
Yes.
And Matthew J. Drake is really good about being like, that dude, you probably want to check out that dude. That guy. And I'll be like, really? And he's like, he moves like a military guy. And I'll be looking. And I'll like get a couple angles, and he'll just like kind of move his chair so I can get a better look sometimes.
Oh.
She's very, very, very understanding about this must-have inspiration for heroes.
Yeah, he knows you're not being.
He's very secure.
Yeah, he knows you're not looking, imagining. It's just research. It's all research.
Yeah, and he's fine with that.
That one moment changed your life.
2008. And then I was reading romance, so of course she delightfully dove into romance with me and recommendations because she is that romance reader. They have like crates of boxes downstairs in the basement of all these romances and favorite romances, and she has just piles of books. And she would be like, oh, the next book for that series is somewhere over in that pile over there, about 2 feet from the bottom of the pile. I'm not kidding. That was like a thing.
2 feet from the bottom of the pile.
And the pile's like up here, right? And 2 feet from the bottom of the pile. That's where the second book is, somewhere in there. That's not organized. That's just her remembering where she put it.
That's hysterical.
Which is totally different. Yeah. And the next thing she got me into, because she knew that I was, she was pretty darn sure I was going to be into shifters. Yeah. So she hooked me on the Nalini Singh Side Changeling series, and it happened to be starting to head into the holidays around that time. So she like got me hooked on several of those holiday anthologies that come out there.
Shelley Lawrenson. Yes. I like Tia Joyce, who's self-published. I don't know if you've read her.
Dana Marie Bell also does shifters who are really fun, especially if you like the lighter comedic side.
I do, yeah.
It's like romantic comedy, and she's got a very, very light voice.
Get recommendations too.
I wrote as PJ Schneider a couple of paranormal romances.
I need to go look this up ASAP.
I did. So I did write a few shifter novels, and then I also wrote the London Undead series, which is still out by Carina Press. It is a set of novellas where London is ground zero.
I think I found that on your website.
Yeah,
because you did cite those ones. Yes.
And that one was a lot of fun, but what ended up happening while I was writing paranormal romance and also writing science fiction romance is just that they're very, very niche, right? You find readers, they love it. But when you're looking at Trad Pub is looking for a broader audience than the niche audience that likes sci-fi romance and paranormal. Like, y'all are wonderful people. and I'm one of
Yes.
like one of you. But at the same time, I was working from my career perspective, trying to break into trad. And so because I was trying to break into trad, we talked to the editors about my voice and what they'd like to see from me. And they asked me if I'd be willing to give romantic suspense a go. And I was like, well, one of my all-time favorite authors and heroes is Patricia Briggs.
She's a good one.
I started reading her back when she wrote the C&M series.
Okay.
And she was straight up fantasy at that time. She wrote Steal the Dragon and When Demons Walk. And I was in love with those books. And then she had Hurog. I don't remember if I read them in order of writing. These are the titles as I remember them. Right? So the Hurog books was a duology. And then she had The Hob, which was a fun fantasy romance. And then she switched over to urban fantasy for the same thing. Her editors came to her and said, hey,
really?
Will you give this a try? And she goes, I can check out werewolves and fae and vampires in the real world. Like, I can give this a go.
Yeah.
Right? And so she gives it a go, and the next thing you know, we have the Mercedes Thompson series.
Which is how I first learned about her.
And the Alpha and Omega series.
Yes.
And Moira and Tom are getting a full-length novel.
Are they really?
Yes, they are. In the next couple of years.
Oh my goodness.
Just
that's
saying.
exciting.
That novel's happening.
She's working on it.
It's in the loop. It's in
Oh my goodness.
It's in the list.
That's so exciting.
Yes. Because of that, like, I was just kind of thinking about it, and if my hero can do it, let me give it a shot. And my agent was really, really cool about saying, hey, look, don't write something you don't like. Don't write to market, which I agree with. But give it a go, and if you like it, let's do that.
Yeah.
So I gave romantic suspense a try, and I started, my first couple of books in romantic suspense was through Carina Press, the Safeguard series, and that was really fun. And it turned out that my action scenes and the beats that I used in paranormal romance translated really well to romantic suspense. I just kind of took out the paranormal aspects or the fantasy aspects, right? But I still had really strong heroes and heroines with different kinds of strength. I still had really strong moral codes in all of them. So my voice and my brand and the kinds of people I was writing still stayed the same.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so great that you're able to transcend one genre right into another.
I mean, obviously I did the research too.
Yeah.
They were like, oh, we would like you to read romantic suspense. I went out. And right around that time, obviously, Cherry Adair was out there, so I picked up some of her books. Helen K. Diamond. Also, Lori Foster's Getting Rowdy.
I love Lori.
I was just like, hey, Lori Foster's really cool. Getting Rowdy was a delicious book. Like, I read the others in the series, but the only one's title that I remember is Getting Rowdy. Because...
She is the best title.
So I really enjoyed that entire series.
Yeah.
But it was Getting Rowdy that I always remember and sticks out in my brain as like, yes, I would like to try to write romantic suspense because this was fun as hell. I really enjoyed that.
I mean, I can tell that you do your research when you do your books because, again, I think you said it perfectly, the beats, they relate. It's not as if you're attempting something that's out of your depth, like you know what you're striving for. I think you kind of, you've read enough of them where you can internalize it to a certain degree, right?
I think, one of the things that I do is I try to read in the genre that I'm planning to try to give a try. That was a lot of words, sorry. You should read what you plan to write.
Yeah. You
but
should know your
while
genre.
I'm writing it, I actually don't read the same genre while I'm writing it because I don't want to accidentally absorb people's ideas. Right?
That's
Because
true.
nobody wants, most people don't want to plagiarize. And even unintentionally, right?
Yes.
So I don't read my genre while I'm writing it. If that makes sense. Like I'll read historical romance. It's lovely to read. Steampunk is super fun to read. I love reading fantasy. I just gobbled up Patty's latest book because that came out last week as of the time of this interview.
Yes, depending on when I edit this.
I was totally supposed to be editing at that time, and I'm totally got a book due as well. Both, and I still stopped and read Patty's book because that's what you do.
Because it's Patty. That's what you do.
That's just what you do. And it really only took me a day. Like I was only sent back by a day.
It's well worth it though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you need to refill the creative well. You do. But when it comes to romantic suspense, I don't read romantic suspense while I'm writing it. But then, after I'm finished writing it, I can go back and catch up on the romantic suspense that I've fallen out of. And it's kind of funny because there's an author, Katie Robert. I'm not sure if you're familiar
That
with
name
her.
sounds so familiar.
All right. She's banana pants in a whole lot of ways, but they're all the best kind of ways. And I really think that the O'Malley series from Forever, right, because we were both writing for Forever at the time, was marketed as contemporary, but there's a lot of suspense elements in it as well. And that O'Malley series was a lot of fun because the two of us also chat in real life, and so we were chatting a bit about her thoughts on the book and what was going on with it, and I was chatting with her about my True Hero series because we were both at Forever. What's going on with that? Very, very different books, but a lot of fun. And there'd be this one point where she's like, you know a little bit more about fight scenes than I do. Can you read this? And I'll be like, okay, this was good, this was good, this was very thing. However, you have him throwing her against a wall here, and then throwing her against a wall here, and then throwing her against a wall here, and throwing her against a wall here. Why are there 5 walls in the room? Is this an oubliette? Right? And she's like, that was not intended. So let me adjust that.
Interesting.
Right? Because I'm like, is she in an oubliette? Because I will believe that. There are some like situations where you might find yourself in an oubliette. But from the scene's point of view, I was like, I'm having trouble blocking the scene. And I'm very, very much like that, choreographed when it comes to an action scene. Like, I need to block it because I want to see how things happen.
Yeah.
Right? And I'm not looking for realism. Like, I'm not being a stickler for it has to be, I'm not cringing in any way. I just have a tendency to like to visualize it in my head.
Yeah. It's so interesting because I'm a reader, a lifelong reader, but I'm a very visual learner, and I think that way. So I can relate to this entirely.
And the funny thing is, like, you'll get a lot of people who are like, sex and combat are very similar in terms of their scenes, but they aren't for me, which drives my partner nuts when we talk about writing craft, because he's like, but they are very similar. I mean, you choreograph them. I'm like, here's the thing. When I read, when I consume, an action scene, I follow, like, I try to visualize it like it's a movie in my head, but I'm a little too prude when it comes to hanky-panky. So when I'm reading an intimate scene, whether they have sex or they have shenanigans and get interrupted or whatever reason why they don't actually do the deed, I'm all about the emotion and how much enjoyment each partner is getting, and not actually paying attention to if there's 6 hands by accident rather than 2 or 4, right? Like, I'm not as choreographed or trying to see the scene. I'm more into the emotion and the experience and the emotional reactions to the enjoyment and the pleasure of the experience. So I'm worse at choreographing hanky-panky scenes than I am action scenes.
Yeah, but I mean, I think you just spoke to the essence of romance, the emotion. If you want realism, realism is great, but you want the emotional connection to it in addition to the realism or realistic.
And let's face it, the emotional connection is real.
Yeah.
People just don't talk about it. Right? Like, it's only recently that we're starting to get more and more of people saying, rather than saying, you're a jerk, being like, I feel like you're probably stepping on my toes right now. You need to back off. Right? And that's a different communication, right? But we've only started doing that very recently.
True. As a romance reader and writer, what do you think makes a book go from good to great? Because you're talking about all these great books, like, what makes them great?
Oh, I think that's really subjective, though. I do. I think that's really subjective, because everybody's got these books that are the books of their heart, right? And especially in current times, they've got their books of their heart. Like, I was reading Patty Briggs's, and this isn't a romance, but I will get to one. But I was reading Patty Briggs last week, and I was so satisfied at the end, because I know Patty's voice, I know her style, I know these characters. It's a long-running series. But she managed to do things with them that brought the familiar, not in a bad way, but in a, I have faith in this character kind of way.
Yeah.
And they really did bring it. And it made me happy.
Yeah.
And so that part was really, really something that I appreciated. And that makes it great when an author has a long-running series and they can keep character arcs going in such a way where they continually renew your faith in the characters, right? Whereas no spoilers, but season 8 of Game of Thrones may have some characters diverging from their general arcs in,
Yes.
or personalities in such a way where people are very disappointed with where their characters are developing.
I'm one of them.
Right? So you feel betrayed, and you feel sad, and you feel drained after that episode. So what I think makes a book great is when you take a character arc and you hint at what can be, and then as they're realizing it, it's something that even if the reader or the viewer or the consumer doesn't agree with it, can still feel satisfied and understand it. Right? That makes an awesome book. I think another thing is Damon Sway is always saying that one of the things that you can do is you can write books that make your readers breathe with your characters. They laugh with their characters. They cry with your characters. They sob when your characters sob. And they gasp when your characters gasp. And they take in breath. And it's just, that makes a good book too. When you're like, literally every moment, it's caught up in the pacing and the cadence of this book. That makes a great book.
I mean, that's the emotion right there. If you can't get an emotion from your reader, you're doing something then.
Yes. And then there's other books that are really, really awesome for give me the confidence porn. Right? Like, I do not want anybody in this book to be too stupid to live. Give me the confidence porn. And do not have situations that could be solved with a single conversation.
That's my favorite one.
Right? And so that can make a really good book.
That's my favorite when you're going, couldn't have texted him. Couldn't have just...
And I've had some of my plots where somebody's like, why did they just not call?
Yeah.
I'm like, I need to give a reason. It's not that I can't do that, but I need to give a reason for why that won't work. Why can this not be solved with a single conversation? And so sometimes that can make a good book. It's like, I really think that there are books out there that I would think are a good book at one point, and in other times I'm just not in the headset for that, or not in the space that I need to be for this to be a great book for me. It's a good read. I recognize it as a good read, but to tie up your whole question about what makes a great book, it's like the right flavors and elements of things at the right time when you're in a mindset to really appreciate them.
Aw, that's such a beautiful answer. Well, I mean, one of the questions I was going to ask you is, of all the characters you've written, do you have a favorite?
Can I pick a dog?
Yes.
I can't pick people.
Well, they're your babies in a way, but I was curious if there was one that was really extra special to you for some reason.
I will say that
A dog. You can say the dog.
Yeah. I will say that Soze was most based off my dog Kaiser.
Aw.
Kaiser Soze, get it? It happened. My roommate named him. But my dog's name was Kaiser.
Oh.
And he had a very similar background in that he was Shih Tzu trained at a very early age. Like, he was between 6 and 8 months.
Wow.
Shih Tzu trained, heavily duty, and already was living with his owners as a guard dog. Very little human socialization whatsoever. His sole job was to chase people off property. And then they decided to move. I guess the owners of the property got divorced. They both decided to move, so they took all the guard dogs and dropped them in a shelter. Now, the shelter facilities did not have the means to rehabilitate dogs that had been trained that way with no human interaction.
Yeah.
They're just too dangerous.
Yeah.
And no human interaction to balance it. And luckily, and so they would have been destroyed. But luckily, Kaiser's breeder checks on his newer dogs, like the younger dogs, like every couple of months.
Aww.
And so he realized that the owners had left, and that they potentially had gotten rid of all the dogs. And so he checked all the shelters in the area and grabbed Kaiser. But it was right around Christmas time. The breeder didn't have the facilities for a dog that he wasn't planning on keeping. And so he had called me in because we'd already been talks about, like, do you have, how to rescue a dog? Because I was looking for not a puppy, German Shepherd dog to kind of take into my home.
Aww.
And so he's like, I want you to come meet this dog. And so all of Soze's background about being like not so trusting and not very much in the way of human interaction. And being Shih Tzu guard dog trained, which is different from the kind of training that the other dogs in the True Hero series got, because they were all either trained as military working dogs or as search and rescue dogs. So having this Shih Tzu trained guard dog is like a different set of everything.
Yeah.
Right? So Soze is probably a favorite character because he was so close to Kaiser, and Kaiser was the dog of my heart.
Aww.
I mean, I've had a lot of dogs in my life, and I've loved every single one of them. I absolutely love Corbin. He's my bubs.
No.
He's my bubs. But Kaiser, I mean, there's just that one dog or that one companion. That's your heart.
Oh, I mean, my dog's my baby. I genuinely talk about him like he's my child. If you didn't know Max was a dog, you would think he was my kid.
Right?
You really would.
And it's just that thing, like, and Matthew, when you talk to my partner Matthew, he'll also talk about Kaiser too, because he's like, I could tell when she was going into hypoglycemia, because I suffer hypoglycemia with insulin resistance. So I'm very acute, very sudden. And when I work, I have a tendency to work and push through.
Yeah.
Which is not good when you have that issue. So Matthew would actually watch the dog. So he'd watch Kaiser, where Kaiser would like hang out at my office door, just usually. And then he'd get closer and hang out near my feet at the desk. And then he'd come over to the desk and he'd like pop up under my hand.
So cute.
Right? And then he'd just get to the point where he's like, not, you know, because he was a very obedient dog too, so he wasn't gonna like all get up in my stuff. But he would just like walk over to Matthew and just look at him. And Matthew's like, all right, I'll go get her a sandwich. Jeez. So apparently it was possible to judge the stage of my absolute, like the urgency of me needing sustenance based on my dog's behavior. Because my dog would just come over to Matthew and just be like,
that's amazing. I love that so much.
And there was just so much personality behind Kaiser. And yeah, so Soze would probably be my favorite character because there were so many shenanigans and behaviors.
I love that you have dogs in your books, by the way. I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
I love that. I think it just adds something a little extra.
I mean, I had a cat too. And I used to refer to him as Ninja Kitty. So I do love cats for the cat lovers. It just so happens that not as many cats are prone to supporting military action.
You're talking about writing, and so one of my questions, because I know I have people who watch, because I do have the author tube component in my channel.
Okay.
What does your typical writing day look like?
That's hard because I do work a day job.
You do?
I do. I am a consultant. I'm a regulatory expert for pharmaceutical research and development.
Oh, wow.
And more recently, I got pulled out of the field because I used to travel 75-85% of my time.
Wow.
I've been pulled out of the field to become a practice manager for a large team.
Good for you.
So I still travel, but it's more from an engagement management perspective to support my team. And make sure that they have the managerial oversight and support that they need, or if they need an executive to come in to talk to the client, you know, I pop in and do my thing. And so I travel less, but I still travel quite a lot. And so it's very hard to have a routine day with all of the travel, and it's very hit or miss as to when I'm going to travel. Sometimes I don't know until a week ahead. Sometimes not 2 days ahead. I'm like, oh, hey, I gotta go put out a fire in Belgium. Bye. Right? And, you know, my partner's just like,
safe travels.
Do you need me to do anything? You know, because, you know, he has his own, like, the two of us work well together because he has his own stuff that he has to do.
Yeah.
And the two of us actually work really well because we have our own independent interests, and then we come together for quality time. And so sometimes, my writing is more when I have time to do so. So sometimes it's on a plane. Sometimes it's delayed at a gate. Sometimes it's in a hotel room by myself.
That makes it even more impressive to me. For some reason, I think I just assumed that you were writing full time because you've written so many books. To me, like you're, you know, a household name type of situation where like you're very well known in Romancelandia.
I'm not.
And so, at least to me you are. And so to hear that you're not writing full time is just kind of mind-boggling. I mean, the fact that you've written that many books while juggling life and traveling is just, that's amazing. How do you do that?
I don't know, but don't tell me that I'm not supposed to be able to, because then I might get panicked. No, I truly don't know.
Because some people have to be in that writing mentality, and so again, everyone has their own way about them, but you hear people of, oh, I have to have this, I have to do that. And the fact that you're able to write in a different environment, in a hotel or in in a different airport that you've never been before, I mean, that is a skill set.
It's actually getting more challenging, believe it or not, because we were talking off camera about the fact that I have recent medical challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of those recent medical challenges, I need to switch over to Dragon Naturally Speaking and dictation. So I can't write. It was already hard enough to write a hanky panky scene on a plane in a cabin full of business people. Okay, but now I have to dictate. So I'm not going to be writing in a plane anymore. So I have to find like nooks and crannies to write where people aren't going to hear me talking to myself.
You still use it when you're in public, in a public setting then?
Well, in a public setting, I might find like there are some places that'll have like little sound booths for taking phone calls, and I will write in there for half an hour for like a writing sprint, or an hour, if it's a public setting, and then I'll try to do edits at like coffee shops or in hotel lobbies or at a restaurant, or take notes. But right now, because I'm learning Dragon Naturally Speaking, and it is an ongoing learning progress, that's usually in the hotel room or in, my apartment, or in the rental car as I'm driving, because not all of my client sites are right at the airport, right? So you have to rent a car and drive like 2 hours out to Bumblefudge, and so I'll dictate in the car as I'm driving.
That's amazing.
Honestly, Carrie Ann Ryan is really, really good, awesome author, and she writes both paranormal and contemporary. And she was really generous enough to give me her time on a phone call to talk about some of the solutions that she has for being able to do dictation. So she was really generous with her time, and I love her books, so that's the thing. And she is an incredibly prolific author. Like, her work ethic is nothing but respect for that work ethic. Like, her work ethic, nothing but respect. And then also Pintip Dunn.
I know her. I know that name.
Yeah,
I've met her once or
she
twice.
gave me, she shared her experience with me as well with having RSI. She was giving me some insight into that journey and her being able to figure out how to write, and that blew me away.
Wow.
Her work ethic, while still being good to herself. Both Pintip and Carrie Ann stressed not just having a work ethic, but being good to yourself.
Huh.
And I learned a lot from both of them about that, talking to them recently.
That's amazing though, because it's twofold. One, the built-in community. I mean, that's so wonderful that you were able to converse with people and they were able to, give you actual insight. And
yes, and you're not alone. Like the romance community doesn't leave you alone. In a good way.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's almost creepy, but it's in a good way.
So the other reason I was thinking was that's an author challenge that you conquered or you're learning to conquer, because that's real life.
Right? And they both gave me reality too. They didn't just give me happy bubbles.
Yeah.
Right? Like they didn't just give me sparkles and bubbles and feathers and hooray, we can make this happen. No, they were like, there's some realistic things that you need to deal with to be kind to your body. You have to realize that you're gonna have to make some tough choices. And they brought me to that too, which I think is important. Because if you just get the positive sides of hooray, you start to wonder what's wrong with you that you feel worn down.
Yeah.
Right?
I think
so they
I
were
can
real
relate
too.
to that. I can relate to that because again, I was mentioning before off camera, I had problems with my back. So when people are making progress and you're not, you're going, okay,
what's wrong with me?
Yes.
Right? No, they were very real with me, and that helped. That helped so much.
I do have some, hopefully they're fun questions. They're either or questions. I have 3 different categories. I have the romance related either ors, writing related either ors, or just random either or questions. Okay, either or. Coke or Pepsi?
Coke.
Pancakes or waffles?
Waffles. Belgian.
Cake or pie?
Pie.
Crushed ice or cubed ice?
Cubed.
Action movies or dramas?
Action.
Netflix or Hulu?
Hulu has Buffy. But most of the time, Netflix.
You like Buffy? Okay, no wonder no wonder that I was meant to talk to you.
Do you see what I mean?
I love Buffy so much.
But seriously, Netflix doesn't have Buffy.
They did for a while.
They did, and then they didn't, and now I'm like Hulu because
Hulu
of Buffy.
has a Buffy. I fully support that answer.
Thank you.
100%. Anything Buffy. Sweatpants or pajamas?
Pajamas.
Call or text?
Text. Definitely. Always.
Facebook or Twitter?
Instagram?
Well, I was gonna ask YouTube or Instagram. so Facebook or Twitter or YouTube or Instagram?
I use Instagram the most, although I like to use all of them.
All of the above. That's okay.
Yeah.
Sugar or spice?
You have to have a little of everything to get the fullness of flavor. Like, that's not an either or.
Okay. Sugar or spice? I mean, do you like things sweet or salty?
A little bit of each. You can do the things.
Necklace or bracelet?
Necklace.
Sneakers or sandals?
Sneakers.
Dine-in or delivery?
Most of the time, I really like the dine-in experience.
And then a very, very random one. Dimples or freckles?
Dimples. And I will tell you a very specific reason why. Gail Carriger's Romancing the Inventor. Don't just read it. Listen to the audiobook.
I should have known it to be a Gale story.
It's a Gale story. All right. Gail Carriger's Romancing the Inventor, but the audiobook is narrated by Emma Newman, I think. And the way that she voiced the characters, and this was my first female read. Listen, audiobook, right? And I'm listening, and I just hear like, stop with the dimples. And I squeezed so bad, I fell off my bed. Because it was so, it was so good. You just have to listen to the book, and you have to understand Emma's voice with the stop with the dimples.
That is amazing.
I just can't. So yeah, dimples.
That is so good. I love that. I do have the romance one.
All right, go ahead.
Okay.
All right, we'll do it. It's fun.
So they are not mutually exclusive. You can technically have some of these tropes in the same story, so I'm not saying they're mutually exclusive, but it's your preference of Amnesia or It Happened in Vegas.
It Happened in Vegas.
Beauty and the Beast or Cinderella.
Beauty and the Beast.
The Billionaire or the Blue Collar.
I'm just gonna pause on the Beast today because a little werewolf, Team Werewolf. Okay.
I was watching Teen Wolf when I was like setting this up, so I think that's actually kind of hysterical.
Yeah, definitely Team Werewolf.
Bodyguard crush or best friend's sibling.
See, here's the hard part, because I like Bodyguard crush, but Matthew J. Drake and I are the best friend's sibling.
Aww.
I'm his best friend's sister.
Aww.
Not even kidding. We met at my brother's wedding.
Wow.
Yeah, that happened.
That was your meet cute.
Well,
no, I feel like that.
There's a whole long story in there that's a different interview. Just if you like this, thumbs up the interview. Let her know in comments that you need to hear the story.
Yes.
Because there's a whole bunch of tropes involved. We're talking about best friend's sibling, best friend's sister. There's a bet involved. It was at a wedding.
See, now I'm curious though. Rock star or athlete?
Athlete.
Fake engagement or love at first sight?
Ooh. We're gonna go with fake engagement. I do like the slow burns. The like almost catch you by surprise.
So you're probably a Mariana Zapata fan then?
Maybe.
Have you read her? You haven't read Mariana Zapata?
I obviously have to.
She's a slow burn. And the thing is, these books are 600 or 700 pages, and they're all slow burn.
All right.
I mean, a 600-something page slow burn is a real slow burn.
All right, but if she does it well, it's delicious.
The Wall of Winnipeg and Me is one of my faves. It's one of my favorite books.
Okay, we will take note after this.
Tremendous.
I have to write it down. I'm not going to pretend to remember it and not.
Just saying, I think everyone on YouTube knows how I feel about The Wall of Winnipeg and Me. Friends with Benefits or Love Triangle?
Friends with Benefits.
Redemption or Revenge?
Redemption.
Road trip or time travel?
Road trip. The timey-wimey, the wibbly-wobbly timey-wimey things, very rarely done in a way that I like feel good about.
Secret Admirer or Secret Baby?
Secret Baby.
I was very proud of myself with that one too. Secret Admirer or Secret Baby.
Yes, I like Secret Baby. I'm all Miss Saigon.
And then Stranded Together or The One That Got Away?
Are we talking second chance, One That Got Away? Like there's gonna be a second chance? Because we're talking romance, happily ever after. We're gonna have. All right, then we're gonna go with The One That Got Away.
Second Chance. Persuasion, Jane Austen. That's one of my all-time favorite second chances. You've never read Persuasion?
No. It looks like I'm gonna have to do two.
Persuasion by Jane Austen is my all-time favorite second chance romance, and one of my all-time favorite romances in general.
Oh my gosh, Mary Robinette Cole is not going to ever forgive me for having been on video as not having read a Jane Austen novel.
So again, Pride and Prejudice. I absolutely love this. I love the book. I love the movie adaptation with Keira Knightley. But Persuasion, I just get so emotional reading this one.
Have you read Mary Robinette?
No, I haven't.
Okay. Mary Robinette Cole, the Glamorous series.
Glamorous.
Jane Austen with magic.
Instantly intrigued.
Trust me, it's worth
Thank
it.
you for watching, and hopefully you will now go read all of her books because they're amazing.